Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're looking at a match that on paper just doesn't make any sense. We're dissecting the 0-0 draw between Arsenal and Liverpool from January 8th, 2026.
It's a true paradox because you look at the table
Right.
and the logic just completely falls apart.
Exactly.
Arsenal are on 49 points. Liverpool, they're way back on 35. I mean, that is a 13-point chasm between first and third.
Yeah.
By any normal measure, that match should have been a comfortable win for Arsenal, maybe even a blowout.
But watching those 90 minutes felt like the absolute furthest thing from comfortable. It was more like two heavyweight boxers just trading blows.
Totally. You've got the hard data at the table telling one story, this immense gap.
Yeah.
But then the pitch, the actual performance, tells a completely different one.
A desperate struggle.
Exactly. So our mission today is to try and reconcile those two things.
Yeah.
We need to figure out why the numbers seem to hide the truth of how close that fight really was.
Right. The distance in the standings feels huge, but tactically they were inches apart. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the big one, the stat that usually tells the whole story. Arsenal had over 70% of the ball. I mean, that's almost robotic composure, especially at home. In modern football, 70% possession. And then it almost always means a win, probably a high-scoring one.
It absolutely should. If you've got the ball that much, you just expect the other team's defense to buckle. Eventually.
But they didn't.
And that's where Liverpool's execution was so fascinating. Because despite all that possession, Arsenal's expected goals, their XG, stayed remarkably low.
And for anyone who needs a quick refresher, XG is the quality of the chances, not just how many shots you take.
Precisely. It's about how likely any given shot is to go in. And if you have 70% of the ball, but your XG is barely over 1.0, it means you're just passing it around sideways.
Yeah.
And say furious.
No threat.
Zero threat. Liverpool basically neutralized the ball without even needing to touch it.
Yeah.
They did it by setting up what some of the analysis calls a tactical cage.
A tactical cage. I like that. It sounds passive, but from what I read, it was anything but.
Oh, it was a masterclass in structure. They weren't just sitting deep and hoping for the best. They kept the distance between their midfield and their defense incredibly compact.
Shutting down those central pockets where Arsenal loved to operate.
Exactly. So Arsenal were forced into these long lateral passing loops, around the edge of the box. Looks great on the possession stats, but it creates absolutely no danger.
So the possession becomes its own kind of trap, and when they did try to go wide, specifically to Bukayo Saka,
they ran into a brick wall, an absolutely immense, immovable object.
You're talking about Konaté and Van Dijk.
Their performance was just a masterclass. The work they did on Saka was phenomenal. Saka needs that little bit of space to drive into or to cut inside.
And he just never got it.
Never. The second he got the ball, he was doubled up, forced onto his weaker foot, or crowded out. They basically said, you can have the ball out here, but the box is ours.
It sounds like a perfect defensive game plan, but if it was so perfect, why did the match end in such chaos? I mean, you can't maintain that level of concentration for 90 minutes against 70% possession without it costing you something.
It does. It absolutely does. And that's where we have to move away from the clean data.
Yeah.
Because that 0-0 came at a huge cost. The whole 90 minutes felt like classic Liverpool defiance,
Gritty.
So gritty, just hanging on, fighting for every single inch. But that grit, it takes a toll.
Yeah.
Physically and emotionally.
And we saw the worst of that, didn't we? Late in the game, Conor Bradley, who had been brilliant, he had to be stretchered off. It looked like a horrific knee injury.
That moment just cast this huge shadow over the whole result. You've done your job. You've gotten a hard-fought point away at the league leaders, but you might have just lost a key player for the rest of the season. That's not just a physical blow. That's a huge emotional hit to the whole squad.
And you could see that physical cost turn into emotional combustion almost immediately. The frustration of the title race, of not being able to break through, it all just boiled over.
It really did. The tension peaked right after that injury. You had that little scuffle on the touchline with Martinelli.
Yeah.
That wasn't just, a typical sideline argument. That was the moment you saw Arsenal, the team that looked so cool and composed for an hour, finally lose their discipline.
They hit a wall.
They hit a brick wall, and they were frustrated. That little flare-up just showed how high the stakes felt for both teams, even with the scoreboard stuck at 0. That 14-point gap meant nothing in that moment.
Yeah, you're right. It was like a pressure valve releasing. But speaking of control, the tactics weren't static, were there? This is where it gets really interesting for me. The second half was completely defined by a managerial chess move.
It was. Arne Slot didn't just tell him to keep doing the same thing. He knew that passive cage was effective, but it was just too draining. and
Yeah.
too risky.
So he changed it. He pushed Szoboszlai higher, and crucially, he moved the entire engagement line further up the pitch. So for anyone listening, what does that actually do?
It means they stopped waiting. They stopped letting Arsenal have the ball in their own half. Instead, they started pressing Arsenal's defenders and deep midfielders way closer to the halfway line.
High risk, high reward.
Very. It opens up space behind you if they beat the press, but it completely shatters the other team's rhythm. The whole point was to stop those easy lateral passes and force turnovers much higher up the pitch.
And the effect on Arsenal's build-up was, well, it was instant. Martin Ødegaard, the guy who pulls all the strings for them, he suddenly had nowhere to go.
Nowhere to turn, exactly. By moving that line up, Liverpool basically choked off the supply to Arsenal's creative hub. Instead of Ødegaard getting the ball, taking a touch, looking up.
He's got someone on his back immediately.
Immediately. And that forced Arsenal into playing long, hopeful balls or just going backward. Neither of those are their strengths. That one change completely altered the geometry of the game.
It turned a passive cage into an active one. And while that helped them control the second half, we have to talk about how close this was to being a completely different story even before that. I'm talking about the biggest what-if of the game.
Bradley shot.
Bradley shot in the first half, the sound of it hitting the crossbar.
Yeah, the margins are just incredible. It was a perfectly hit shot, deserved a goal. The data analysts even crunched the numbers on it.
And they said if that shot was just 2 inches lower, just 2 inches, we're having a completely different conversation right now.
Oh, completely. We would be talking about a gritty draw. We'd be talking about a massive statement win for Liverpool, a huge psychological blow to Arsenal, and the title race being blown wide open.
All down to 2 inches.
It just shows how thin the margins are in this league, no matter what the table says.
Yeah.
But to be fair, we have to be balanced here. Liverpool had their moments, like the crossbar, but Arsenal also had chances to win it. Big ones.
Right. You can't forget Gabriel Jesus' header.
Right.
Right at the death. That required an absolutely world-class top-drawer save from Alisson.
It did. Slot's tactical switch made life harder for them, for sure. But Arsenal still created moments that only truly elite goalkeeping could stop. The defense held, but only just.
And that, I suppose, brings us crashing back down to the cold, hard reality of it all.
Yep. Despite all the drama, the tactics, the grit, the result is still a draw. No ground made up.
Arsenal stays 6 points clear at the top, and Liverpool, well, they're still 14 points behind.
Still that chasm.
And this is where the numbers get really tough to look at, especially if you're hoping for a late title charge. From a purely statistical, historical standpoint, Liverpool's title hopes are now less than 5%.
Less than 5%. It's a damning number. And it's not just about the gap to Arsenal. It's that there are other teams in the mix, too.
So the data basically says they're in a battle for the top 4 now, not for the trophy.
And this is their 3rd straight draw in the league. While their rivals are winning, they're standing still. Statistically, it's a huge setback.
The data it's unforgiving.
Yeah,
the hope is gone.
And this is a huge but. This is the counter-argument that the data just can't measure. You look at that second half performance, the defiance, the energy. And they did all that without Salah or Isak, key attacking players. The fight they showed proves they can stand toe-to-toe with the very best. So you can't give up on the squad, even if the numbers look grim.
So really, the blueprint is there. That's what the 0-0 shows.
Right.
When the tactics are executed perfectly, they can neutralize anyone. The intelligence is there.
It's all there. The execution just needs to catch up to the analytics, especially in attack.
They need to turn that neutralization into goal.
Exactly. They cracked the defensive code. Now they need to crack the attacking one. Relying on a shot being 2 inches lower isn't a sustainable strategy.
So what does this all mean? The final thought for you, the listener, is this paradox. We have a 14-point gap on the table, which suggests a canyon. But on the pitch, the difference in performance, in XG, in chances, it was basically 0, a millimeter.
So you have to ask yourself, over the rest of the season, how quickly can that kind of defiance, that sheer will to fight, start to erode a statistical advantage that looks so impossible right now?
The cold data can get pretty nervous when it comes up against absolute, unwavering resistance. It's something to keep a very close eye on.